A car door slams somewhere behind you. Before you even turn your head, before you even know what the sound was, your shoulders have already jumped. Your heart is already pounding. Your hand is already halfway up to protect your face. You didn't decide to do any of that. It just happened. And by the time your brain catches up and tells you, oh, it's just a car door, your body has already reacted as if your life depended on it. Here's the strange part. You reacted before you knew what you were reacting to. So how did your body know to move before you even had a chance to think? The answer is that there are two versions of you living inside your skull, and only one of them is actually in charge when danger shows up. Let's start with the pathway. In the 1990s, neuroscientist Joseph LeDoux ran a series of experiments on how fear moves through the brain. What he found reshaped how we understand every flinch, every jump, every moment your body reacts before your mind does. There are two routes information takes when something startling happens. LeDoux called them the low road and the high road. The high road is the one you think you're using all the time. Sound enters your ear, it travels to your thalamus, then up to your cortex, the thinking part of your brain, where it gets analyzed, identified, understood. That's a car door. That takes time, roughly a quarter of a second. Doesn't sound like much, but a quarter of a second is an eternity if something is trying to kill you. So your brain built a shortcut. The low road skips the thinking part entirely. Information goes from your ear straight to your amygdala, the almond-shaped structure buried deep in your brain that's responsible for detecting threats. No analysis, no context, no conscious decision. Just a straight line from loud sound to move. This pathway is roughly twice as fast as the high road. And that speed is the whole point, because the amygdala isn't trying to be accurate. It's trying to be fast. It would rather you flinch away from 100 car doors than fail to flinch away from the one time it's actually a threat. This is why you can feel afraid before you know what you're afraid of. Your amygdala has already made the call and sent the signal to your muscles before the rational, thinking part of your brain has even finished processing the sound. And this isn't something you learned. Newborn babies less than a day old show the exact same reflex, arms flying outward, fingers splaying at the sound of a sudden clap. Nobody taught them that. Doctors have a name for it. The Moro reflex, one of the earliest, most primitive responses hardwired into the human nervous system, present before a baby has even opened its eyes for the first time. Whatever this reflex is, it isn't cultural. It isn't learned. It was already running before you had a single memory to attach to it. Now here's where it gets interesting because this system wasn't built for car doors and buzzing phones. It was built about 2 million years ago on the African savanna by a species that spent most of its existence as prey. Think about what the world looked like for early hominids. Leopards that could climb the very trees you slept in, hyenas that hunted in packs and could smell blood from a mile away, snakes hidden in grass the exact color of their skin. In that world, hesitation was a death sentence. An early human who stopped to calmly analyze a rustling bush. Is that the wind? Is that a predator? Let me gather more information. That human didn't get a second chance to think it over. The early humans who survived long enough to have children were the ones whose bodies moved first and asked questions later. Anthropologists studying predation on early hominids have found something chilling. Fossil evidence from sites like Swartkrans Cave in South Africa shows tooth marks and puncture wounds on ancient hominid skulls that match leopard bite patterns almost exactly. For a huge stretch of our evolutionary history, we weren't just occasionally at risk of being eaten. We were regularly, actively hunted, and every one of us alive today is descended without a single exception from the individuals in that world who reacted fastest. That's not a metaphor. That is a literal filtering process, generation after generation for millions of years, selecting for the twitchiest, jumpiest, fastest flinching humans because the slow ones simply didn't live long enough to pass anything down. You are quite literally built out of the genes of the most easily startled humans who ever lived. So back to that car door. Your amygdala doesn't know it's 2026. It doesn't know you live in an apartment with locked doors and no leopards for 1,000 miles in any direction. As far as that ancient part of your brain is concerned, every sudden loud noise could be the sound of a predator's paw hitting the ground, and reacting a half second too slow is the difference between a story and a statistic. But here's the problem. That same system that once kept you alive is now firing constantly at things that were never designed to trigger it. A notification buzz, a door slamming 3 apartments over, someone tapping your shoulder. Your amygdala treats every single one of these the exact same way it would treat an actual predator, because it genuinely cannot tell the difference. It doesn't have access to context. It doesn't know what year it is, it just knows loud, sudden, unexpected, and it hits the alarm. This is why people who live in constant noise, constant notifications, constant unpredictability often describe feeling perpetually on edge even when nothing is actually wrong. Their low road is getting triggered dozens of times a day by threats that were never really threats. Researchers studying chronic stress have found that repeated activation of this pathway, without the fear ever getting resolved by an actual outcome, keeps baseline stress hormones elevated. Your body is stuck in a permanent, low-grade version of the leopard in the grass response, except the leopard is a Slack notification. Think about how many of those triggers you actually run into in a single day. The screech of a delayed train pulling into the platform, a dog barking behind a fence you didn't see, your phone lighting up on the nightstand at 1 a.m. None of these are predators. Not one of them has ever actually threatened your life. But your amygdala doesn't check your calendar or your zip code before it decides to sound the alarm. It just fires every time exactly the way it was designed to, because slow and accurate was never the goal. Fast and wrong, most of the time, was always the safer bet. So think back to that car door again, your shoulders jumping, your hand halfway to your face. That wasn't a malfunction. That was 2 million years of engineering doing exactly its job, using the only information it had in a quarter of a second. Sound, sudden, loud, react now. Every single one of your ancestors who ever heard something unexpected and calmly waited to gather more information before reacting, they're not your ancestors. They didn't make it. The ones who did make it were the ones who flinched first and figured it out later. What feels like an overreaction is actually a 500,000 generation long insurance policy, still running in the background, still doing exactly what it was built to do. You're not broken. You're not too sensitive. You are carrying in your own nervous system the exact same alarm that kept a small, slow, clawless primate alive on a continent full of things that wanted to eat it. The next time you jump at something that turns out to be nothing, you're not malfunctioning. You're remembering. Somewhere behind your ribs, a piece of you that is older than language, older than fire, older than the idea of safety itself, is still standing guard. And it is never, not even for a second, going to stop. If your body has ever reacted before your mind caught up, you now know exactly why.